In this Benchmark Factory for Databases chapter, we'll be talking about how you will execute your Benchmark Factory tests, which centers around submitting jobs, and then of course as the test is running, we'll be showing you how you can see what's happening with your test and also how to cancel a test run. In Benchmark Factory, you've got two primary views in the console. You have the Scripts tab and you have the Jobs Queue tab. Scripts are your defined workloads, and jobs are instantiated scripts, or they are sessions of a test. So when I come in here on a TPC type test and I ask it to submit a job, this will launch a new test run. So if you have multiple tests in your Benchmark Factory script, you'll want to come in here and select the one that you care about. So for example, I have a SQL scalability test, and you'll want to select on the top level, and you'll want to confirm your settings for your test runs. And you'll want to select here for specific options. So in this case, I've defined this test 4 different select statements that will run 3 times each for user loads of 1, 4, 8, and 10. For options, things that you want to be aware of, stop test after first error. If in your scenario you want to consider any problem during the test, invalidate the entire test run, then you'll want to turn this on. I generally recommend you leave this off, especially for your extremely long-running tests. If you have a 6-hour test, you want it to be invalidated because of a simple deadlock or wait event that causes an issue at 5 hours, 30 minutes into it. So I'm going to submit the job. I have one last chance to change which profile or database this is going to execute against. I can submit a job which then does not run. I would have to go to the jobs queue and manually submit that if I were to choose no action. I think it's important for this comment section that you document any changes to your environment. So the nice thing about Benchmark Factory is if you have a test, you can use it to see how your system responds to tuning activities you've taken in the database. So if I've added new indexing scheme, I want to make sure that's documented in the test. So when I go into the repository and look at the test run results, it's very clear which test run results map to which changes in the database that you're testing for. Alerts that you can add: if this is an extremely long-running test and if you want to be notified of problems, you can have NetSend or operator emails sent to you. Counters. Counters are very interesting. Counters are additional metrics that can be added or collected for a test, and these will be of interest to you for your databases that are running on the Windows platform. So Benchmark Factory, as the test is running, it can connect to any Windows computer on the network and collect additional metrics. So if you have a MySQL, a SQL Server, DB2, or Oracle database running on Windows, you can collect operating system overhead type issues. So if I want to track memory, for example, come down to the memory performance object and say, hey, at the host OS that the database is running on, let's track, we'll say, pull page allocations. Now, anytime you add an additional counter to the host OS, you're putting an additional load on the system. But if you're really keen on collecting this information and you don't have an operating system collection or monitoring system, the Benchmark Factory can add real value here. And again, you notice that you have this stop job after first error. I'm going to turn this off. I'm now going to submit the job. this has taken my focus and benchmark factory to the jobs queue. It's showing me what's running now. So on to the right, it's telling me that I'm sampling. Sampling means that the test is running and the results being collected are accurate or being valid for the test. You can choose to do pre-sampling, which will allow the test to run for a determined amount of time to kind of warm the system up so that you have, data loaded into memory versus, the first time your query runs it's collecting off a disk versus the next time it's run it's collected off of memory for kind of sort of false performance gains. A couple things to be aware of when you're running tests to see what's happening. The run status will give you the overall view of the test, and for some of these tests we can actually track progress and show you how much time is left. For a great many tests it's really impossible for us to predict how much time is left, and so you won't see that on all of your tests. Below we have a view of our agents. Benchmark Factory has started an agent for this run. I can see that we have a user load of 1 executing down here, just as it indicates above. If I expand the run status tree item here, we can go into our real-time statistics, which are going to show me what's happening as the test is running. One other thing to be aware of, you have the output tab at the bottom. This is kind of the standard error message place for Benchmark Factory, so you might see issues here as well. You can see what you've asked Benchmark Factory to do while the test is running. All of these tabs will be read-only, so you can't change the properties of a job while it's running. If we come down to our real-time statistics, you're going to want to do a couple of things here. I recommend, by mouse right-clicking in the graph, that you turn the graph legend on so you know what you're looking at. You can also right-click, select Add Data Points, and you can look for which metrics are currently being shown. So if I just wanted to view that real-time counter of the host OS memory pool page allocations, I can do that now. I can also right-click, and other metrics that might be of interest to you, average response time. And if we can, we'll graph these on the same page. Now I've got 2 metrics here with data values that are very, very far apart, so it's hard to see all of this on a single graph. Things you can do, if I turn on your toolbar, you can do a zoom at the bottom, and you can kind of see that green line for average response time. That's just going to be easier to see if we turn the zoom off. And if I come back to the graph legend, turn graph legend back on. If we come back in and for the add data points, I remove this guy. So now I have average response time, and maybe I want to see that in addition to maximum response time. So what's the variation between the worst case and the average case? Some effects you can add to these graphs. You can go to a 3D view, and if you click on this button you can actually add additional 3D effects. Whatever is easier on the eyes, that's what I recommend you go with. What the summary tab is going to show during the run stats is you're going to have these data points graphed for each run. So right now, if I come back up to the run status, we're still on that user load of 1. So the test hasn't even gone through a complete iteration yet, and we've asked it to run 4 to 5 iterations. We don't want this to be a 15-minute video, so at this point I'm going to show you how to cancel a job. So I'm going to hit the Stop Job button. This can take a while to stop your job. So if you're running a 500 user iteration, we have to wait for the database to terminate all 500 of those sessions before Benchmark Factory will consider the job stopped. When you stop a job, all results collected up until the end of that iteration are tossed out. So the only results you'll be able to see in your run reports and recorded in the repository are iterations that have completed. Now I canceled this job in the middle of the first iteration, so now I have really nothing to look at in terms of completed reports.